Hello, I'm Kathy Ramsperger, author at shoresofoursouls.com. But please call me Kathy. It's my delight to share an excerpt with you today from Claire Fullerton's beautiful newest novel, Little T, available at online retailers and independent bookstores near you. Thank you, Claire. A little about Claire. Claire's the author of 4 novels and 1 novella. She hails from Memphis and lives now in Malibu. Her Southern family saga, set in 1970s Memphis, Morning Dove, was published by Firefly Southern Fiction, and it was a 5-time book award winner and a semifinalist in the Faulkner Society's 2017 William Wisdom International Competition. Claire's novel, Dancing to an Irish Reel, published by Vinspire, was a 2016 Kindle Book Review winner in cultural fiction and a 2016 Reader's Favorite finalist. She's the author of a paranormal mystery, A Portal in Time, also published by Vinspire, and a contributor to the book A Southern Season, and has also written the novella Through an Autumn Window, which takes place at a funeral, or a Southern funeral, different from others. Her 4th novel, Little T, which I will read from today, is a 2018 Faulkner Society finalist. Her work has appeared in Southern Writers Magazine, Celtic Life International, the Dead Mule School of Southern Literature, Women on Writing, and The Glorious Table. Claire is represented by Julie Gwynn of the Seymour Literary Agency. And a few reviews before I get to my own and to reading the excerpt. Julie Cantrell, New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of Perennials, says Claire Fullerton once again delivers an emotional, lyrical tale and proves she's a writer to watch. Says a novel B. Christy Barrett and Tony Callan. If Southern fiction is your sweet spot, then Little T is the bullseye, and Claire Fullerton, an expert marksman. Claire Fullerton writes with a depth of character, compassion, and hope. And Johnny Bernhard, author of Sisters of the Undertow, says Fullerton delivers another poignant work of Southern fiction in Little T. With a well-paced narrative and sense of place, we revisit the hard truths of family and friends in the Deep South, where the past is never past. And here's my review, which I'm going to read in full because it tells what I got from her newest novel. Claire Fullerton's lyrical writing always pulls me into one of her books, and her themes keep me there. Her latest novel, Little T, is about home, friendship, and family ties, how they define us and how we carry them in our hearts, always. It's also a book about how we deal with tragedy and grief gradually, how we open up to our feelings, and the more we do, the more we heal. And opening up to them means exploring our shadow side. The story of the South, both old and new, which juxtaposes the 1980s with present day, asks the reader to ask and answer her own poignant questions about healing and bridging the racial divide. Yes, it is about that. The author doesn't flinch from the hard truth of racism in the South and tells the story with a truth that packs an emotional punch so strong it's physical. The character development and pacing are also spot on. Sense of place, manner, and conversation are told with the authenticity of a writer telling a story of what they know. Yet in the end, it's the friendships that will stay with you in life and in story. Leave you thinking, wondering, What became of these fast friends after they left their reunion at a lake house full of memories? Having lost my own two best friends to death, I found the ending especially poignant and real. Can we change our friends? Can we change our world? Or can we only change ourselves as our friends witness and support our transformation? And now for the big event, an excerpt or a couple of excerpts from Claire's latest novel, Little T. So, first, to set the scene, Celia, the protagonist, has joined her childhood friend Rennie to examine life, love, marriage, and the ties that bind, even though Celia's has yet to heal. When a former boyfriend appears at the door, Celia must revisit the life she's tried to outrun. With her friends, she talks through her story, including her dearest friendship with Little T in Como, Mississippi. But will their friendship continue and thrive now that the racial divide in the Deep South continues to evolve? Can friendship triumph over history? So, the first scene I'm going to read introduces Celia, her brother Hayward, and Little T. And here's the cover of Little T. Isn't it gorgeous? I can imagine that house, can't you? Hey, Little T, Hayward called as she and I sat cross-legged on the north side of the veranda. I bet I can beat you to the mailbox and back. It was a Saturday afternoon in early June, and we'd spread the church section of the Como Panoleon beneath us and positioned ourselves beneath one of the pair of box windows gracing either side of the front door. The front door was fully open, but its screen was latched to keep the bugs from funneling into the entrance hall. They'd be born from the current of the veranda ceiling fans that stirred a humidity so pervasive and wilting, there was no escaping until the weather cooled in early November. The glass pitcher of sweet tea Elvita gave us sat opaque and sweating, reducing crescents of ice to weak, bobbing smiles around a flaccid slice of lemon. Little T stood to her full height at Hayward's challenge, her hand on her hip. Her oval eyes narrowed. Go on with yourself, she said to Hayward, which was Little T's standard way of dismissal. I bet I can, Hayward pressed, standing alongside Rufus, his 2-year-old red-bone coon hound, who shadowed him everywhere. Little T took a mighty step forward. And you best get that dog out of here before he upends this here paint. Miss Shirley gonna be pitching a fit you get paint on a veranda. Then come race me, Hayward persisted. Rufus will follow me down the driveway. You just don't want to race because I beat you the last time. You beat me because you're a little cheat, Little T snapped. She's right, Hayward, I said. You took off first. I saw you. It's not my fault she's slow on the trigger, Hayward responded. Little T hesitated. I just took the advantage. I'll be taking advantage now, she stated, walking down the 4-brick steps to where Hayward and Rufus stood. At 10 years old, Little T was taller than me and almost as tall as Hayward. She had long, wire-thin limbs whose elegance belied their dependable strength, and a way of walking from an exaggerated lift of her knees that never disturbed her steady carriage. She was regal at every well-defined angle, with shoulders spanning twice the width of her tapered waist and a swan neck that pronounced her determined jaw. Smiling, Hayward bounced on the balls of his feet. Every inch of his lithe body coiled and ready to spring. There was no refusing Hayward's smile, and he knew it. It was a 1,000-watt pirate smile whose influence could create a domino effect through a crowd. I'd seen Hayward's smile buckle the most resistant of moods. There was no turning away from its white-toothed, winsome source. When my brother smiled, he issued an invitation to the world to get the joke. Typically, the whole world would. Celia, run, fetch us a stick, Little T directed. her feet scratching on the gravel driveway as she marched to the dusty quarter-mile stretch from our house to the mailbox on Old Panola Road. I sprang from the veranda to the grass on the other side of the driveway and broke a long, sturdy twig from an oak branch. Set it right here, little T pointed, and I placed it horizontally before her. But Rufus rushed upon the stick and brought it straight to Hayward, who rubbed his rusted head and praised. Good boy. Even that dog of yours a cheat, little T said, but she too rubbed his head, then replaced the stick on the ground. Now come stand behind here. Celia's going to give us a fair shake. We'll run when she says run. Her hands went to her hips. Now what you going to give me when I win? The reward of pride and satisfaction, Hayward said. And just then the screen door on the veranda flew wide and my brother John came sauntering out. On go, I called from my position on the side of the driveway, where I hawkishly monitored the stick to catch a foot creeping forward. Looking from Hayward to little T to make sure I had their attention, I used a steady cadence announcing, ready, set, go. Off the pair flew, dust scattering, arms flailing, off in airborne flight, side by side, until little T broke loose and left Hayward paces behind. I could see their progression until the bend in the driveway obstructed my vision, but had little doubt about what was happening. Little T was an anomaly in Como. She was the undisputed champion in our age group of the region's track and field competition and was considered by everyone an athlete to watch, which is why Hayward continuously challenged her to practice. Presently, I saw the two walking toward me. Hayward had his arm around little T's shoulder, and I could see her head poised, listening as he chattered with vivid animation. You should have seen it, Hayward breathlessly said when they reached me. She beat me easily by 3 seconds. I looked at my watch. 3 seconds? That doesn't seem like much, I said. Listen, Celia, a second is as good as a mile when you're talking time. I'm 2 years older and a boy, so believe me, little T's already got the makings of a star athlete. He grinned. But we already knew this. So now I'd like to read a little bit more in terms of the characters and the inciting incident, which changes Celia's life and those around her lives. Beautiful description of setting here too. The light was always dim in the entrance hall, irrespective of the time of day. The carved crown molding on its high ceiling matched the dark walnut wood of the floor and door casings, which glowed in polished rosettes above the opening to the formal dining room on the right and the ample living room on the left, with the green tiled solarium behind it. The entrance hall had a central catacomb feel and was always the coolest area of the house. In its cavernous elegance, footsteps were amplified on the maple floors during the months of June through September, then fell to a muted padding when Mom had Thelonious haul the crimson and navy runner from the attic and place it beneath the foyer's round centered table. At the end of the hall, behind the stairs, was my father's den and attendant-screened porch, but rarely did I visit that interior. My father was a private man, reclusive and solitary by nature, and whether he was in the library or not, the door was always shut. I had to skirt the gladiola arrangement on the entrance hall table. The floral design reached wide with flourishing arms toward the French credenzas against both sides of the walls. My reflection flashed in the ormolu mirror, as I ran toward the stairs to find my mother. My hair crowned me with the color of night crescendo, dashing so dark it almost looked purple. I am 100% Wakefield, and all that distinguishes the lineage, from the dark eyes and hair to the contrasting fair skin. There has never been a Wakefield to escape the familial nose. It is severe in impression, unambiguous in projection, straight as a line, and slightly flared. John and I are mirror images of each other, the yin and yang of the Wakefield English bloodline. But Hayward was born golden, just like our mother, who comes from the Scottish Montgomerys, whose birthplace is Argyllshire. John and I possess an unfortunate, atavistic Wakefield trait, though on me the black shadow is a ready silence, but on him it plays out as something sinister. John and I possess, sorry, John and I are individual variations of our father's dark countenance, which is to say, in our own way, we are loners, people slightly removed. But Hayward got lucky in possessing our mother's shining essence. I could always see an internal light in their green eyes that set off their amber colored hair. I put my hand on the thick banister and climbed the stairs to the first landing where my parents' bedroom and living quarters unfurled like wings. The bay window overlooking the garden had its draperies drawn against the searing silver sun. Walking into the sitting room at the right, I called for my mother, thinking she may be in the adjoining master bedroom. I'm upstairs, her voice descended. Celia, come up. I want to see you. I mounted the stairs to the third floor landing and found my mother perched lightly on the sofa in the alcove that served as a central area for the other four bedrooms. Behind her, sunlight filtered through the organza window treatments, highlighting the red in her hair. Her slender hands held a three-ringed binder full of fabric swatches, the swatch on top a cool blue toile. She patted the seat beside her, and I settled softly. My mother was cultivated, circumspect, and radiated a porcelain femininity. Always in my mother's presence, I gentled myself to her calm self-possession. In my heart of hearts, it was my hope that the apple didn't fall far from the proverbial tree. Tell me, she said, what do you think of this fabric for your draperies? We could paint the walls a light robin's egg and put white on the molding. I think it'd be divine. She looked around the room as though seeing it for the first time. It's time we got rid of the wallpaper in here. You're growing up. She laid her ivory hand on my cheek. You'll want this eventually. I think now's a good time. I knew enough of my mother's ways to know she was engaged in preamble. She was practiced at the art of delivery by discreet maneuver, and I suspected her impulse to transform my room had hidden meaning. Why is now a good time? My mother looked in my eyes and spoke softly. Celia, I'm telling you before I tell Hayward because I don't want this to come from him. Your father's going to be taking a job in Memphis, so we'll be moving. We're going to Memphis? I gasped. Yes, honey, you'll be starting school at Immaculate Conception in September, she answered. You know the school. It's attendant to the big cathedral on Central Avenue. But that's a Catholic school, Mom. I thought we were Episcopalians. We are, honey, but it's highly rated academically. Your father and I think being exposed to a different religion will broaden your mind and give you beautiful advantages. We can come back here any weekend we want, and you'll have a brand new room when we do. You'll have the best of both worlds, you'll see. You'll make new friends in Memphis, and little T will still be here. It won't be a drastic change at all. Try to think of it as an addition. There now, sweetie, don't make that face. It isn't the end of the world. But it was for me. Memphis intimidated me. Memphis was the big city compared to Como, and I found it cacophonous and unpredictable in its patchwork design. There was a disjointed, disharmonious feel to the city, what with its delineated racial relations. Part of town were autocratic in their mainstay of Caucasian imperiousness, and there were dilapidated, unlucky parts of town, considered dangerous, which a white person never chanced. This much I'd learned on my visits to my grandparents' house near the lake and Central Gardens. Blacks and whites never commingled in Memphis, even though they did coexist. But there was an impenetrable wall that separated the races, and I'd been raised in a footloose environment where it didn't matter so much. I took my teary eyes and sinking stomach to my bedroom so my mother wouldn't see me cry. Through the window over the driveway, I watched as Hayward and Little T threw a stick for Rufus. I hadn't the heart to run tell them our lives were about to end. Thank you, Claire Fullerton. Thank you, Little T. Thanks for joining me here today to talk about a book I love. It's my great joy and enormous pleasure to connect great readers with great writers. You can find my interviews with writers at my author Facebook page, facebook.com/Kathy Ramsperger. And you can find out more about me and my writing at shoresofoursouls.com or ground1onecoaching.com/blog. This is Kathy Ramsperger, wishing you a good week with a good book.